6:33. Good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Yes, we're going to go through the front pages for you now. And in the Telegraph this morning, they're leading with the Home Secretary's deal with Rwanda to shut loopholes that block removals of illegal immigrants.
The Mail on Sunday has the Home Secretary's pledge to send illegal migrants to Rwanda by the summer.
The Times reporting on retail giant John Lewis is considering a dilution of its partnership structure amid the crisis on the high street.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Well, it is pricked up.
Well, yeah, because if you work for John Lewis, you are a partner, aren't you?
Yes.
And you get benefits for that. So if they're going to change that could upset a lot of staff. The Observer says that Boris Johnson preparing to make a televised defence of his actions during the Partygate scandal.
And finally, in the Sunday People, we're told criminals are dodging jail sentences because of overcrowding in prisons.
OK, let's go through the papers now with Deputy Editor at Spiked, Fraser Myers, and writer and columnist Emma Wolfe. Good morning to you both. Nice to see you. Fraser, let's have a look at the Sunday Telegraph, should we? And we are going to get migrant flights to Rwanda by the summer, says the Home Secretary. There's a lot of caveats to that, though.
Yeah, this is the new claim by Suella Braverman. I mean, people will be aware that this Rwanda scheme has been stop and start, many times over the years. The last time a flight was due to lift off, but the European Court of Human Rights slapped it down and prevented it from leaving, even though the UK High Court had said it's okay. So Suella is basically trying to reassure people, or reassure her fans, essentially, because this is obviously a very contentious piece of policy, that all of the loopholes have been closed, that by this summer, essentially, a flight will be allowed to take off. It will be human rights compliant. She's been on this trip to...
Do we know but that's the interesting part. What loopholes have been closed?
Well, essentially, before, one of the issues was it was only covering asylum seekers, and now it's going to cover all kinds of other migrants, and
it's the closing the modern slavery loophole. That was the thing. That was the claim that people always use, modern slavery, and so apparently they've closed that loophole, haven't they?
And so she's been on this trip and she's been showing off the new homes. It's been widely reported that she likes the decor, and she says the Rwandans are champing at the bit to get this scheme going. It's strange because on the one hand, you thought the Rwanda scheme was meant to be a deterrent, and yet now she's showing off how lovely this little villages. You'll have a right to buy the house.
Honestly, you couldn't make it up. Should we tell us about the rugs,
once you get the right to work. It's all very bizarre. I think, this scheme, let's be honest, is a blunt way of covering up the fact that the UK government has failed to control the borders and failed to deal with the small boats crisis. A lot of that comes down to the failure to deal with the kind of people trafficking gangs, and this feels like a bit of a distraction from that. I don't think we're going to see that many people sent off to Rwanda, and when they do, frankly, these things have been tried before.
But you wouldn't want that many people to be sent,
no, in
the sense that it's meant to be a deterrent. You send a few hundred and then it's meant to stop everyone else wanting to come over.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the Court of Appeal do. They've got a ruling that they're hearing this challenge next month, so if they go with the High Court. It's been a very high-profile trip, 2 days in Kigali, as you say, lots of touring around beautiful little homes and things like that. Their point with this illegal migration bill is that they will send people back to their own country, deport them back to their own country, or send them to a safe third country like Rwanda, which is, let's see if it happens. As you say, Fraser, not a single flight took off. It was June, wasn't it? They stopped that final flight.
But as you say, the European Court of Human Rights, she said, well, if necessary, we'll come out of the ECHR.
Well, she says nothing's off the table. She has to say that.
She has to say that. I don't think this government is up for that fight, to be perfectly honest.
Why is it a fight to come out of that?
Well, and she says it doesn't breach those, doesn't breach the ECHR if they go with the High Court ruling and then the Court of Appeal.
Yeah, as it happens, I don't agree with this Rwanda policy, but...
I'd never guess.
No. But I also, I do worry about the interference of the ECHR and judges of every level. This is a policy decided by the democratic government, a democratically elected government. We have a chance to kick them out if we don't like it. I think that's the way things should be. There's far too much judicial interference in this question of migration. It means that we don't really have a full-on, no-holds-barred democratic debate over how we should control the borders, how generous we should be in terms of our asylum system, because clearly it's kind of broken at every level. In some cases we're not generous enough. And in other cases, we're maybe a bit too lax, and we're allowing in, criminals and people who shouldn't be welcome here. So that we need to have that debate out in public, and having, the judiciary put their thumbs on the scale actually doesn't help that at all. It doesn't get us to where we need to be with a kind of proper immigration system.
Okay, Emma, let's have a look in the Observer, shall we? And this is world leaders backing the International Criminal Court's decision to issue an arrest warrant for Putin.
Yeah, I mean, this is largely symbolic, this arrest warrant. We know that this is a few days ago, we know that Vladimir Putin is very, very unlikely to ever end up on trial or in court in The Hague, certainly. Defendants cannot be tried in absentia, but it is significant. It's very significant. It's the first arrest warrant that's been issued over war crimes in Ukraine. The actual charge, I believe, is child deportation. Hundreds, if not thousands, of children appear to have gone missing from Ukrainian orphanages. I mean, in sort of quite, murky circumstances, holiday camps, school trips, that kind of thing. They are then adopted, apparently, in Russia. Their identities, their past is effectively erased. So it is pretty scary. But obviously the charge, the arrest, the charge itself, conviction is unlikely to stick or to ever come to fruition. But Putin will be labelled for the rest of his life an alleged war criminal.
Yeah, well, he will. And internationally, it makes it very difficult for people to have dealings with him if they want to retain their reputation.
Makes it very difficult for him to travel anywhere, because if he goes to any ICC signed up country, he has to be arrested. He doesn't travel. I mean, he's petrified of COVID. He's utterly paranoid about COVID and anyone coming within 10 metres of him. So he's unlikely to travel. He can still go to China, which is good because he's great mates with Xi Jinping. But
or America.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Not a signatory to the ICC.
Exactly.
I think there's a downside to this in that, we all, obviously everyone agrees that Putin is a monster. We all accept that these war crimes are happening. But at the end of the day, we do want this war to come to an end. And I want the war to come to an end by Putin backing down, by Putin getting out of Ukraine. And there is a sense that if, the international community decides that there is no way out for him, then the only option is to press through and press on. So there is a slight danger there. I mean, on the other hand, you're right, it's symbolic. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to be ordered.
But doesn't it, Fraser, add internal pressure on him? There's a lot of external pressure now, but doesn't it add internal pressure to those other people around him?
I think if you're part of Putin's inner circle in the Kremlin, I don't think you hold the ICC or any of these international bodies in very high regard at all.
Medvedev said the arrest warrant was toilet paper, and the foreign minister laughed it off.
I think you see them as institutions.
Really
exactly. You see them as institutions of the West, and that's and
but they're saying that in public doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're thinking in private. They wouldn't dare say anything else in public.
Of course,
by the morning.
I'm just not convinced. I think Fraser's point holds. I don't think this is the thing that's going to terrify them or bother them.
It's going to be how the war plays out on the ground. That is going to be what decides the fate of Putin.
And I hope we do more than this. I hope this isn't the thing that we do. Oh, he's a war criminal, and then we sort of throw our hands up, because that would be more dangerous.
Robert Fox, the defence editor at the Evening Standard, was speaking to us yesterday and said that, similar to what you're saying, Fraser, at the moment it doesn't hold much weight, but when the tables hopefully do turn on Putin, that will be, when these start to hang over him, these arrest warrants, being an alleged war criminal, I mean, that inner circle then will start to turn on him with something like this. So it's an interesting point, isn't it? Fraser, let's look at the Sunday People, shall we? And criminals dodging jail sentences because of overcrowding in prisons.
So it turns out that our jails are so full that a lot of people are being given suspended sentences that you would really think wouldn't deserve them. There's certain people who have assaulted police officers who are being given suspended sentences, people who've stolen, tens of thousands worth of parcels from DHL warehouses being sort of spared jail. I think the real problem here is that, yes, prisons are overcrowded, but I think in general we send too many people to prison. England and Wales sends more people to prison than anywhere else in Western Europe. So we need to think about that. I think we should reserve prison for the most serious offences, and then when people do commit serious offences, like assaulting a police officer, they should damn well be sent to prison. They should be sent there for a very long time. There is also a problem of short prison sentences, because that actually really messes up what's going on in the prison system. That means that people can bring drugs into prison. It disturbs the kind of order of things a lot of the time. That's often the...
Why does it mean people can bring drugs into prison?
Because if you have people coming in and out, it just makes it easier for people to smuggle things in. And sometimes people go into prison for a short sentence and they come out addicted to drugs, and it's almost like a kind of reverse rehabilitation a lot of the time. That's how kind of poorly our prisons are run.
I don't know. I question that, because I went on a prison visit not long ago, and the one thing I thought coming out afterwards was, how are drugs getting in? Because I went through a body scanner, I was patted down, I had to be sniffed by dogs.
I always wondered this, how are drugs, and we know drugs and mobiles and things like that are rife in prisons, how are they getting in?
I don't know. They couldn't get in through the visitors, I'll tell you that much.
I don't mean to come over all Happy Valley, but I think things get flown over on walls and on drones and in birthday cake. I mean, there must be some way that they're getting
people will find a way.
Or via police, prison guards and workers. There's a lot of people in and out of prisons. And there's a lot of
honestly, I was just astounded. I was like, how on earth can this happen? I mean, I couldn't have snuck a polo mitt.
But there are vans going in and out, there are catering staff going in and out, there are guards, people are going in and out every single day. And are you saying, I mean, look at what the Met Police, well, probably the next story, but look at are you saying that everybody who works in law enforcement is above the law?
Well, I hope none of them are above the law.
Sorry.
Obeys the law.
Yes.
I mean, clearly that's how it's going in.
There are bad apples in every profession, but it's a worry. It is a worry. Let's have a look at. Well, you just mentioned this. Women's trust in police, damaged for generations.
This is not a surprise, actually, to women and to probably lots of us. This is the head of the British Transport Police, Lucy Dorsey, who is saying that the murder recently, a few years ago, of Sarah Everard by Wayne Couzens, a serving Met Police officer, has damaged women's trust, for generations, and has pretty much broken that. Has created a growing divide, she says, between the public and the police. It's so difficult, isn't it, when you think about the trust that we are meant to have in the police and the way that trust has been broken, and the revelations that have come out recently about the racism, the misogyny, the homophobia rife, the nastiness, amongst serving police officers.
What do you mean by rife, though? Just tell you what,
hundreds of text messages, hundreds of, domestic abuse jokes and things like that going around, women being searched in their own homes and then photos being released later. It's really frightening. If you're walking down the street as a woman, if you get a knock on the door as a woman, if you are asked to pull over in your car as a woman, or any vulnerable individual, I won't just say as a woman, as a young man, I don't know, you just believe that the police have a warrant, that you open your door, that you let them into your home. And then we find out that someone like Wayne Couzens was flashing, was exposing himself to women in public, that those reports were not followed up, and then a few days later he raped and murdered someone. I just think the policing system, yes, it's a few bad apples. Of course, it's not everybody, but it is terrifying to think of that. Who do you trust?
There was a poll out this week, and it was something like 4% of female Londoners now fully support the Metropolitan Police.
4%.
4% fully, totally support the Metropolitan Police. I mean, obviously there were some that say they still do in some way, but that's the worry, isn't it? That there will be women and young people out there who do not now trust in the police because of these, as Stephen says, few bad apples.
You tell me, if we're walking down the street on our own and a lone male police officer approaches us and tells us to, or you get a ring at the doorbell and they ask to come in on their own, what do you do? It's a police officer and they flash a warrant and they're wearing uniform, I would think, I have to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you would, wouldn't you? But I mean, after Sarah Everard, I was actually talking about it with my friends last night at dinner. We were saying, before Sarah Everard, you just got in the car. I think after you would ask questions.
Yeah.
You would. But I mean, even Sir Mark Rowley, he said himself, for the next foreseeable, for the months ahead, 2 to 3 officers will be in court every single week.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least he accepts the fact that it needs to be kind of a clearing of the swamp.
And policing works by consent, doesn't it? It works by people accepting that these are the law enforcement officers and that we have trust in them. When that trust is broken so catastrophically that 96% of women don't have full trust in the police.
And then, on the other side of things, if you're a victim of crime and you report it to the police, you have no confidence that they're going to do anything about it. If if your house has been burgled or you've had your phone nicked or something like that, no one expects that to be followed up anymore. Or your bike stolen.
You get a crime reference number.
Yeah, you might get a crime reference
and it's put
number.
into a filing box somewhere.
You might get to claim something back on your insurance, but you're going to be left in the lurch.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the hard-working police officers who are in it for the right reasons and are doing really, really good
Which is
work.
the vast majority.
Yes,
Exactly.
but I also feel sorry for the public. And I feel sorry for Sarah Everard's family to know that man who went on to rape and murder their daughter was reported a few days earlier and could have been stopped.
Yes, well, indeed. It's a very difficult situation. We've got to leave it there. Fraser, Emma, for now, thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.